It's such a mystery. I tell you right now, the future is ours to make, and the new world is waiting for us to create. If we all start thinking unity, we can make this world a community. One people, one community, unity. If we all start thinking unity, we can make this world a community. One people, one community, unity. No matter what you believe in, no matter what you say, no matter who you are, love is the way. No matter what you believe in, no matter what you say, no matter who you are, love is the way. I have a vision of a better place. I see all the colors making one rainbow race. We are so different, but deep down we're the same. No matter who you are, love is the way. All I really want to do is see this world become a peaceful place. All I really want to do is see you heal yourself and put a smile on your face. If we all start thinking unity, we can make this world a community. One people, one community, unity. If we all start thinking unity, we can make this world a community. One people.
Good evening all, and welcome to Just Us Radio. This is Sheila Folger tonight on the 6th of May with Unity and Community. My dear sister, Jerry Jones, is not with me this evening. She has gone for a night out without me, I might add. She may join us later if she's capable to drop in. Tonight, again, we have one of the most amazing, wonderful guys, Dr. Richard Allen Miller, physicist, herbalist, author extraordinaire, metaphysics and shamanic teacher, brain the size of a universe, and the wit of Marvin the robot. Dedicated savior of the world, with King Arthur behind him and Merlin by his side. Knight of knowledge and expertise, forever searching, seeking, analyzing, reading, writing, speaking throughout the universe. What more can I say? This guy has no limits. Welcome, Rick, my dear friend.
Well, how am I supposed to respond to something like that? It's a no-win situation. Go.
Oh, come on, you can win.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm. My stock response has always been that I'm going bald.
Oh. Well, that's a good thing.
Unnatural causes. I pulled it out.
Everybody shaves their head these days.
I'm sorry?
Everyone shaves their heads these days.
I know. The Klan is in. We, right here in Ku Klux Klan country, right where I live here in Southern Oregon. Hoo-ha. But, no, mine was from unnatural causes.
Before we go forward, I want to broadcast this out to the universe, so that the universe may listen and bring back to you what you seek. Would you like to go through, Rick, what you're trying to do at the moment with the books that you've written that you've not yet published?
Yeah, thanks, Sheila. Yeah, we're seeking a patron. I have 10 new titles ready to go to press. But each title, you know, when you do Nook or Kindle or any of the different formats, they're all different. They each cost, usually with artwork and layout and that kind of thing, as much as $5,000 a book. And then, Lightning Source is inexpensive. If you're going to print, you don't even need to do like 60 at a time or something like that. But it's self-publishing, and that's what we do. And so I have 10 titles and that are ready to go to press. The Encyclopedia last year at Volume 1, 5 volumes, and I'm looking to do 2 more volumes. They're all ready to go. They're indexed, cross-referenced in alternative agriculture. The Modern Alchemist has a sequel called Pantheon, Archetypal Gods in Daily Living. It's 22 chapters. My ex-wife and I wrote that back in the 80s as a pathworking to sequel The Modern Alchemist in a ritual system of magic. And so it's a book of tarot, and actually in Workbook 1, it's covered, Pantheon, as a metaphor of some of the ways, protocols that the Navy SEALs used as to become supermen with mythical living. I have 2 more workbooks to a sequel, the Power Tools book and Workbook 1. I have Workbook 2 and 3 that I'd like to come out with. And the list goes on. There's the final book will be the non-local mind in a holographic universe. And so this year, I plan to pump out 1 book each month in updating my writings. It's kind of like a form of self-realization, because to see projects that I started 40 years ago, not 20, 40 years ago, and then seeing closure, where the thing is done, it's out in the universe, it's its own magic child, and now I'm moving to the next one. Like the Native Plants of Commercial Importance has a sequel called Forest Farming, and this is where we turn the forests into certain forms of story farming, where you go in and you cut greens and you have an understory with fern and mushrooms, and there's a kind of habitat where instead of wildcrafting, which has been our past, now we do something a bit more sustainable in terms of forest farming. That's another title, forest farming. And so the one that we could talk about tonight is Basic Farm Plans for North America. That's another title. And then I have a third one coming out in the same venue, Successful Farm Ventures of North America, which includes 5 habitats. And these are successful farm things where we've done, I don't know, what are you doing with, lavender. And while you can't compete with the lavender that's being imported from France, lavender farms make excellent bed and breakfasts, where there's all kinds of cottage industries associated with lavender balls and blah, 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 that people can actually see where you add value to ornamental crop that you're coppicing just to make the grounds look good, and instead of throwing away the things, you're using the berry or whatever in some kind of jam. And so, where the farm becomes, it's not about money, it's about a way of living and your relationship to yourself. So that's what I'm doing. I'm seeking a patron to finish these 10 books. We need about $75,000 to include a new website. My website got hacked when my webmaster died, and so it's not functional right now. It's just sort of kind of limping along, and I need to change everything from Joomla into WordPress. And that's going to cost some money. And then, of course, I'd like my rent covered for the next year so that I don't have to worry about chasing the dollar and keeping the barbarians from the gate. This is a starving artist form. I like that. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I'm inflamed. I love what I'm doing. It's not really about money. And actually, ultimately, I actually have everything I need when I need toilet paper, I seemingly have the toilet paper.
We all have everything.
What's that?
We all have everything we need, really.
That's correct.
So what is your website?
Huh?
What is your website?
Okay. The primary website is richardallenmiller.com. Allen is A-L-A-N. richardallenmiller.com. And the publishing site, which is linked in that site, is oak-publishing.com. Thanks, Sheila. Yeah, that's good. I'd like to sell some books. Yes, of course.
And you have about 9 books published already, don't you? How many do you have?
I have more that are out of print. I did early stuff called Magical Mushroom Handbook for High Times. I did Legal Highs for Level Press. I did Growing Marijuana's Indoors. I've written a lot of books. Anarchist Cookbook. That's one. I was one of the 4 original authors on that one. It's now Simon & Schuster I think it's Simon & Schuster. I don't know who's doing it now. Have taken off all 3 names, and now there's just one author. But there were 4 of us that actually did the original book. And then over the years, how they slowly dissipate those old soldiers like fade away.
Magical Mushroom Cookbook for High
No, Magical Mushroom Handbook was...
For High Times.
Yeah, that was the High Times. Yeah. I did the Magical and Ritual Use of Herbs, sequeled Legal Highs, and what that book did was actually keep those 28 herbs out of the Uniform Controlled Substance Act. That meant that kola nut and guarana for caffeine were legal. That meant that psilocybin mushroom was legal. It is illegal to extract psilocybin mushroom. It is illegal to sell psilocybin mushroom, but it's not illegal to grow it. They will try to suggest that it is, and you can win the court because it's not in the Uniform Controlled Substance Act because of the magical and ritual use of herbs. What I did is essentially sign rituals to them, made them sacraments.
Well, that's what people in power do.
Well, that's why we work it, one way or another.
So, what I'd like to look at, Rick, is I know that you have a very spiritual nature, apart from your amazing brain and the way your mind works. I know that you're very connected to the land as well. And it's, to start off, I suggest, and I think you'll agree with me, that it's really good to be in contact with nature, to talk to the land, talk to the plants, talk to the critters around, and just find out what's needed. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, there's a dialogue. It's not me talking to them or them talking to me. It's like an exchange. That's an accurate way of looking at it. And that exchange is on all levels. And while it gives a sense of empowerment to be indigenous, it's like a little kid. They're in a sand pile right out of the gate. They love working in dirt and the sand. There is a relationship of taking your hands and getting them dirty in the soil where you actually produce something and you watch it grow like a child. It's, it's special.
And I had a very special week down in South Carolina with my friends. I experienced just that. It was getting down in the dirt, rubbing the soil through your hand, mixing it with different kinds of things, arranging. It was as if the earth was speaking to everyone, and Lynn was there making a pattern. He made the flower of life image and put sand on the petals and put plants in between them. Then he started with a yin-yang symbol, and he's going on to do a peace sign and a labyrinth, and all the time planting more and more things. We went down to the local nursery to get some plants, and I was walking around in my usual state of mind with my intuition trying to choose the right plants. And I was looking at some flowers for some ground cover. And I noticed one flower was sat there and there was a lovely golden dragonfly sitting on it. I walked right up to it and it still sat there. So I picked it up and touched the tip of its tail. And it just lifted its tail up and still stayed there. So I put the plant on my cart, and then we walked around everywhere, choosing blackberry bushes and fruit trees, different herbs. And when I came back and put everything on the cart, then the dragonfly flew away. And later on, when I was sitting on the deck, the dragonfly came, the same golden dragonfly, perched on the flowers for a few seconds and then flew away. What I experienced was an amazing energy, not just the land, not just with the animals and the birds, but the people that were there too. There was a great atmosphere, a great energy of
You mean
community.
maybe that dragonfly was an elf or a faun or a fairy? Maybe, huh? What do you
I
think?
don't know.
A close encounter?
Well,
That's how it works. That's exactly how it works. There is a kind of unspoken, not word, dialogue.
Yes.
Exchange. And it's an exchange. The dragonfly got off on you, too. So there was an exchange going on. The dragonfly was pollinating. And so it isn't just the bee. Yes, the bee is important. The dragonfly is an interesting symbol. I wonder what that suggests into the subconscious. What do you think, Sheila?
Dragonfly is transformation. I have dragonflies around me a lot. I've actually stood in the middle of a wonderful garden, and I had a swarm, if that's what you call them, of dragonflies circling around me. I've never seen that before.
That's
and
like
after that, my whole life changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, the soil itself is unique everywhere. It's like habitat. Like the human body, the human is not 100% human. It's only maybe 10%, and then it's got all these bacteria, molds, and water transport processes, and habitat makes a type of structure out of everything. And what I was going to say is the soil is like that. It's a unique habitat, one field to another. And Michael Rizia, the different organisms ranging down in viruses and bacteria, small bacteria, and then moving up into small organisms like nematode and thrip, and then the molds that intercroll and the mycelium, the mushroom. And that sets up a kind of life form that actually has passed Turing tests and is considered conscious. And while we have tried to originally call that awareness Gaia, the serpent at the end of the rainbow, the dragon that sings the lost chord, that place of 0 point energy, the difference between this side and that side, the measure of the hum. I point out that it always starts with sound and goes up or down. That's why they call it sonic boom and Baxter et al. That's one of the things we discovered in paranormal studies, was that the sound audio range, very distinct, defined frequency band, different than light and infrared, ultraviolet, and blah, 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 microwave.
And it's the sound in the silence as well, when you're just one with everything around you.
That's the lost chord. That's the voice of the silence. They call that the Shabad, S-H-A-B-D. It comes from Sanskrit. And it's a sound that you hear in the right ear. And it came out of the Upanishads, the first books ever written that translated in humanity. And we talked about the song of the silence, or voice of the silence. That's it's been translated by different people over through history, kind of like the I Ching or something. It's one of these holy books. Lots of different people try their hand at translating it. But it basically suggests, this is out of the Upanishads, that there are 10 different distinct sounds that one hears in the ear that have to do with what you call the lost chord, or the voice of the silence, the 0 point energy that several people have, McKenna has suggested. It's related it's not tinnitus. Tinnitus is when your inner ear rings. There is a ringing, that's the lowest sound, and then there are different other sounds, from chimes to bagpipes. And these are described in this very rare book, Voice of the Silence. Aleister Crowley translated it, so did the one that started Theosophical Society. What's her name?
Madame Blavatsky.
Blavatsky did a wonderful translation. Yes. Several others have done it. Voice of the Silence. You can find it on the internet. It's like the translations of the I Ching by different scholars. They have different levels of how they translate it. It basically talks about 10 sounds. What you can do, and this is the way Eastern religions work, is that they discuss a thing called the little death, or where meditation, where you leave your body and go home for a brief moment. This is the purpose of meditation and going internal. This is what the land allows you to do by the way it speaks to you. There is a centering, and what happens, this physical plane isn't real. And we can prove that mathematically and with different models in quantum physics or holographic universes. It's quite easy to suggest that there's something more going on here than just what we call the physical plane. And that's me saying that as a physicist that has been in agriculture and trying to evolve, go to someplace higher than where I was born.
And you don't need to, just when you're sitting on Mother Earth, just when you're with Gaia and you're playing with the soil, you actually do, because your mind is quiet, you actually do enter a kind of other dimension.
Alternate and useful, different than this dimension that we're listening and, paying attention and things. Yes. And why you go there is that you can do things there that you can't do here. That's the joy of having these altered states. That is, in fact, what magic is, earth magic. It is the art of changing consciousness at will. To be able to change the movie.
Yes, we can change the movie, Rich.
Yes, we can. We actually can. In fact, it's time, the way I like to play it, it's time for everybody to get off the couch and begin evolving, because if you don't, you're going to have to reincarnate back here, and look what kind of world you may get to come back to.
Yes, well,
yeah.
I've done with my recycling process.
What's that?
I've done with my recycling process.
Well, I don't know how that works. Yes, I aspire toward that thought form too. And yes, if you believe it, it absolutely is true, because imagination is reality.
Exactly.
And so, there are levels of that. And what you're trying to do is, what?
No, sorry, carry on.
No, what you're trying to do is find that resonance between one level of awareness and the next. And that becomes like a step. And you see the relationship of the one to the other. That's why in the holographic universe that I prefer to use in my current work, I have discovered that emotional intelligence is more important than physical intelligence because it's a higher level of awareness of the same things.
The problem with the difference in those two, Rick, is I agree with you, emotional intelligence is far more important, but the problem with emotional intelligence, it doesn't come with words. And so you're better able to translate what you receive in EQ if you have an IQ, or at least a good, phraseology.
You mean you could read Reader's Discussion, increasing your word power?
Well, you can speak better so that people can take you more seriously.
Yes.
You have a good mind.
Yeah, scholarship and language and diction, yes, they're all important rules of the road. And with the slang, if you catch my drift, where we're going to go, nobody knows. Music aside, man.
Yes, coming back to music, I'm very fond of the flute. That's a wonderful thing for nature spirits, I think.
Well,
I've seen many people playing the flute sitting by the water.
Are we talking about American Indian or...
well, not necessarily. I've seen people yes, anybody like that. The Silent Flute with David Carradine.
Yeah.
A wonderful movie.
Yeah.
And also, I know a lot of indigenous people and some original, not Aboriginal, they call themselves original people in Australia.
Yeah.
And they taught me
the real people.
yes. They one young lady taught me to whistle to the nature spirits by the water just by using a blade of grass, you know, the grass whistling.
Yeah, I used to do that with bubble gum.
Trust you to be different.
Yeah, well, you
know. You whistle with bubble gum.
Blowing
it just goes pop, doesn't it?
What's that? It works. There's ways you can do it where you can get it to whistle. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Just depends on who's playing on first.
Whistling with grass to the water
so
spirits.
He was on second, actually.
But really good.
It's language is like a container. That means that water is in essence, and when I put it in a glass, I have confined it, and now I can use it as a tool. And so language was a way to associate sound with words. And that was part of the original Bibles, if we wanted to talk Kabbalah, for example, called the Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Formation. And what it did is it relates sounds and words so that you can relate two words that would otherwise not be associatable.
Right.
That's called gematria, which later became numerology. And what it is, it's about resonances and the relationship of sound. There you are, not light, not heat. We're talking about sound.
Yes.
The relationship of sound. And that was one of the Bibles that got left out of the a lot of the English and American Bibles do not use that.
No. Music is the sound of the earth and nature.
Well, there are technologies that man has lost in his relationship to indigenous. I think a child that's 4 years old is more indigenous than an Aborigine. I think they're more in harmony with their environment. And that while Aborigines have approached childlike behavior in their relationship to the environment, where they graze, if you will, rather than domesticate or whatever, like farming.
The thing is, there's many originals as well as Native American that aren't out in the public. They're still hidden. I know many people in Australia that say there are still hundreds of them hidden, and they are very much as they were with the land. I've read Mutant Agent or Mutant Message Down Under and some of the others. I've actually been fortunate to go up into Adelaide and walk about. And, they would show me how they find water in the woods, and then I would show them how I'd find water. Navy SEAL style. They actually know you're there before you even see them.
Yes. That's because there are other factors that register your presence. And most people don't pay attention to those, like birds or something like that. The talking birds mean something's going on. When you don't hear the talking, that means something's going on.
Uh-huh.
And so, you pay attention to different triggers, and you have a different kind of relationship to the environment.
And with water as well, like I was saying when I was at Sharing Springs, I was whistling to the nature spirits, and I walked down past the little cop house they built there and the tree house they're building to a little stream, and I was just looking at the water, and the water does have memory, and it does speak to you also.
Well, structure, it does. Listen, that's the emotional thing again. That's the water aspect of being a human being. And so your thoughts, like you have the glass that's half full or the glass that's half empty. And when you look at it as half empty, it also impresses on you that you're missing something, which means that it's not as healthy as feeling that you've just gained something. It's half full of something. Well, you have those choices. And it's those choices that determine health.
Yeah.
And that's it. And it's all memory. It goes into the water, the structure. That water is up against an organ. And that organ then is either healthy or not healthy, predicated on the kinds of information that is being delivered to it from the structure of water. And you can drink it, you can think it, it's all the same. You have to be very mindful and take responsibility for the thoughts you choose to entertain. That's how it works.
So let's go through then. So you've prepared your land, you've communicated with Mother Earth and the nature spirits and everything around you. You've put your hands in the earth and you've understood what it needs to be combined with, and you started planting. So what now? How do you go from there? How do you go from being a backyard garden to being able to sustain your family with that?
Well, a lot of the crops that you're growing do not have to be oriented toward the market. They could provide your alcohol for your vehicle to get about, or your heat, or your food, or an herbal pharmacy. You know, what would you spend for money on something? What you would like to do is look at crops as survival-oriented, or what we call prepper agriculture. How's that one sound? Where, you know, you choose something that moves you away from monetary systems. Barter, okay? That's why you have a small community. Up in Portland, what they're doing now with community-supported agriculture, they have more than 200 growers. And there's groups that are doing kale, others are doing radish, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. There's hundreds of them. And what they've done is create a map with dump sites, like a community garden where you can go get your food from locally grown artists, and it's a map based on barter. Not Oregon Country Fair. Every year in Veneta, which is just outside Eugene, the Rainbow family puts on the Oregon Country Fair, where it's really a bunch of old ladies that show up making fashion statements. They run around naked. It's wonderful. And everything was, you know, paint their bodies, whatever they do. And it's the Oregon Country Fair. They have often referred to it as Veneta Freaky.
That must have been Beltane.
You loved it. No, that was May 1st. That's the big maypole with all the vessel versions.
What we could do with is even getting away from barter. We could just, you know, put out there, this is what we have. Come and help yourself for your own needs, and let us come to you to pick up things.
Well, then they have, you know, and the postman, you weren't going to go there.
Yes, let's talk about
you know, have a bunch of warlords that decide they're going to come and take what they want.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the movie is different than the book. And Kevin Costner is not a computer, which is actually what the postman is. It's a computer in Corvallis, and while everybody is going down in a black hole because the grid's gone and there's no power and warlords land up and take control of small regions. There's no martial law, that kind of thing. And so you're left to defend your town and the way you run it. And Corvallis in the book becomes evolution. They become more evolved because you don't have to go backward and do it the way Grandma did it. This computer talks about how you can grow crystals and make your own solar panels.
When was this book written, Richard? Because it talks about the chaos from EMPs, the destruction of major cities, the release of bioweapons.
Yeah. No, this book was written way before. Listen, the book you want to start with is Ernest Callenbach, called Ecotopia. And this was at the time, Ecotopia, he lived next door to me. I got to know Ernest Callenbach as a little boy. And he wrote this book called Ecotopia. It's about Washington, Oregon, California seceding from the Union in 1984, yes, right at the George Orwell thing. And then the book starts up in the year 2001, 40 years later, kind of thing, when they're allowing the first of the United States in to see how they live differently than the United States. How did they form this barrier to keep the United States out? Missing plutonium. That's how the book does it. It's in different cities, and they blackmail, leave us alone, and then the book takes over. And what it is, it's a book like Michael Tobias wrote. Michael Tobias wrote Voice of the Planet out of Berkeley, and that's where your snow leopard, that's the new version out. But Ernest Callenbach is the one that wrote Ecotopia, and that's a worth read, where it's like Amsterdam and using bicycles, and the bicycles belong to the community, which means the community repairs bicycles. It's like a resource like water is, or whatever.
So why do they call you the postman?
Well, that's an interesting thing. Years ago, I was invited. I worked for congressmen, networking rural communities in bunkers. That's what I did. And I go in and I fine-tune what they got, what they don't got, blah, blah, blah. And Dennis Kucinich wanted to interview me on a Ohio radio station that went into 4 states. And a 3-hour interview. And I told him I would do it if he drank absinthe with me. And by the 3rd hour, we were hammered. It got really out there, I'll tell you. And I started sounding more like Buddha. I couldn't believe it. It was great. And he started calling me the postman because of my knowledge base. I'm like that computer in the book. And actually, Kucinich calls himself President of the Midwest. He's suggesting, as a lot of congressmen, that there will be a moment when the United States fragments probably into about 9 provinces. In the Midwest, their issue is against corn subsidies. Of course, out here, it's marijuana. There's groups of states that have issues against the federal government, and they're unique for that region or whatever. The Bundy Ranch problem is really about China wanting to do some fracking in an area that they claim they're going to put a bunch of solar panels. And really, ultimately, what they did is they hired 2 criminal congressmen, a father and a son. And because I have worked with BLM, and at the highest levels, I've worked with BLM, and to my knowledge, they don't have any armored vehicles. Where did they come from? China. And that's going to happen more and more now. Are going to make a push for illegal use of our lands with such things as fracking and whatever. And by living in semi-rural communities that are essentially semi-self-sufficient, what you do is you barter trade things that you do not have or cannot have that you need. And you do that by growing some extra, lavender, in your lavender thing. I'm using that I watched California, for example. Down in Northern California, they would knock down 100 acres of eucalyptus to put in a rice field. And that eucalyptus soil is citral, citronellol. Those are insecticides. And they're natural. Fungicides. You make Desenex and things like that for athlete's foot, and flea collars. And so what they did is they slash it and burn it. But if you glean, and that was the Native Plants book that I wrote, you can go in and make a living off the forest. We were doing that with U-bark, for cancer treatment. A lot of different, each region has, South Carolina, back in South Carolina, you do a lot of wild indigo, and bloodroot, and bloodroot is a really important narcotic used in surgery, whereas wild indigo is the 501 blue gene dyes. You got dyes and things like that. These are native plants that are indigenous to your habitat. So what you do is you take a physical inventory of what's around you and what God wants you to grow. And he'll tell you, you might have a big patch of nettle down there. Sounds to me like Revlon would love to have that nettle rather than from Europe. And so there's ways to go at these crops. Last year, I did 140 truckloads of ponderosa pine cone just for fire starter in South Carolina. South Carolina has a big cone user that does and seed cleaning plants there. You do loblolly and jack pine and others, and all those cones are spent cone. They sift the seed out, and then they throw the cone out into a big bonfire. And there are companies that will go in there with a truck and salvage.
That's what I was going to ask you about, your truckload of cones, pine cones.
Yeah, they don't go to someone that would then put them in oil so that when they put them in a fireplace on the East Coast, they glow. Something weird. But that's Walmart, Michael's, and Lowe's.
They do smell nice at Christmas.
Well, good luck with that. For these little fake fireplaces on the East Coast.
All right.
I could not live on the East Coast. If the grid went down, that'd be just a nightmare.
So how would you survive without buying any food at all, Rick? You could survive for quite some time, couldn't you?
Yeah, how about your water?
Well, let's move away from the water for a second. How would you could survive on the land yourself without buying food for quite some time?
Oh, yes. Look, it's the law of threes. There's 3 minutes for air, 3 days for water, and 3 weeks for food. So what's more important? And chemtrails and geoengineering and what they're doing right now.
Well, listen. I'm on a positive timeline, and I want to say this because I was reading this information about the postman. Now, listen, it says here, another message of the plot deals with the backstory of the post-apocalyptic world. Specifically, that it was not the electronics destroying electromagnetic pulses, nor the destruction of major cities, nor the release of various bioengineered plagues that actually destroyed society, but rather it was the wholeness themselves who maintained large stockpiles of weapons and ammunition and preyed on humanitarian workers and other symbols of civilization. I'm suggesting to you that we are actually changing ourselves. You may not go along with me, and I've seen how my grandchildren grow, even with all their inoculations. They are becoming immune to everything that's being thrown at them. And we are evolving at the same time as all this is going on. My suggestion is not the problem of what they're throwing at us. That's not going to work. The problem is getting to the minds of these psychopaths behind it all.
They represent the least human aspect of mankind and would lend a rational mind, like a scientist like myself, to feel like maybe we were invaded by something.
Why'd you say maybe, Rick? I don't have any maybe.
Well, I can't prove anything, other than if
you don't have to prove it to feel.
Well, okay. I think our system was invaded a couple 100,000 years ago. I think they invaded us where the actual war for Earth is on the inside of each of us. It's blood types. And you've got a fourth gene in there that's non-human. That's why they call it Homo sapiens sapiens. And that the draconian bloodlines of Europe and so-called bloodlines of Christ, etc., that extra gene is possibly where the alien hides out. And the battle for Earth is everybody having free will. And you can make your own choices on what you choose to do or not do.
It's actually understanding the power that you have within you.
That's the deal. The war that's going on, like if you want to change the Earth, you don't do it externally. You change yourself.
Yes.
And the Earth changes with you. That is a given.
Yes.
That's because everything starts from the inside out, and it's projected outward, and the physical world in itself is not real. Your upper brain, or what you call the mind, is there to make your belief systems true.
Well, that's just plugged into the matrix anyway.
Well, that's one aspect of the matrix. How about another one? Like the chemtrails have a polymer in it that is also known as a API, biological interface, mind machine, and that a bunch of biochemists disappeared 10 years ago or were murdered, and how about a bunch of crazy guys out there to blackmail you for the air you breathe?
I know.
Well, that you want to talk about the Earth. The Earth has that polymer. It's in everything. It's in everybody. Everybody's infected. You can eliminate it. You can get rid of it out of your body. Electrostatic field will wipe it out. But the next air breath you take, the next drink of water you take, or the next piece of food you eat, it's reinfecting you.
So let's separate these two things, Rick. On the one hand, we have all this
space and leave orbit.
No, let's separate our brain from our mind and heart, okay? On the one hand, we've got all these things going on. On the other hand, we are evolving spiritually. We are coming into our own power.
Your gut, your intuition, the thing that you like to work from, which is a very cool place, actually is closer to real because it's outside space and time.
Exactly. So we create our own universe.
Now we're getting down to it. The problem is
There's no problem. There's no problem.
So.
Yes. So we have to separate these two things. We don't need to get involved. We need to be aware of what's going on, but knowledge means no fear. You become aware of what's going on. When you understand, then you can use your own power and your own intuition, as you call it. I call it spiritual nature and cosmology. It's connected.
There's another way, take the path of least resistance.
Yes, that's it.
That's right, because flow. The key word is flow. Because, well, when you're fighting something, you don't think that's not restructuring the water inside your body, where I'm going to not let them do this, I'm going to, fight this tooth and nail. Taking that attitude is the half-empty glass. By the way, there's a third glass that could be full. It's full of piss. It's a yellow liquid.
Well, we won't take that one.
3 options.
Although it's supposed to be healthy for you.
Well,
it's supposed to be healthy for you, but I don't fancy that one.
What? Piss? Yeah. Well, It depends on how old it is.
And it depends what you're consuming anyway.
That's right. Especially if it's Amanita muscaria, where you're letting someone else filter out the toxins. That's another.
What we're looking at, Richard, is so we've got everything now growing nicely. We're at one with our land and the nature. How can we evolve into providing what we need to survive with the water, earth, air, and fire for our utilities, for our cooking, for our sustainability?
Yeah. It's called the Horn of Plenty. And basically in the great book of magic, Solomon the King, he said, ownership is enhanced when shared with another. And so it's not about having it and being at one with it. It's about sharing it.
Right. It's all about sharing.
Once you get that, you're moving to newer levels of the same relationship to things. And so having it and feeling satisfied and you've got it, then you have what's called the Horn of Plenty, where ownership is enhanced when shared with another. And once you have that center, the idea that your pleasure comes from bringing pleasure to another, now you have a mentat that would suggest that everything happens for a reason and everything leads to something better. And so that's the half full glass of, wow, I've got something I didn't have before.
So where do we go with this when we're trying to, that we can cook with fire, we can wash with water, we can grow in the land. You know what's missing? What's missing? The only thing missing is communication. What do you know about the old systems that they used to use? What do they call those cranking radio things?
Oh, that was 2 tin cans and a wire?
No, no, the one with...
I'm just trying to figure with me.
The ham radios.
Oh, ham radios. Yeah. That's boycotted by the Jews because of its toxicity. Ham radio. That is, you can make the crystals. You know, they're real simple. You can just go out in the yard and find other, special forms of crystal that you can use. And what that does is, what you're trying to do is take, through a series of coils, amplifying the radio wave that the crystal is sensitive to, and you amplify that and you turn it into audio, and you can hear it. And they're real simple to build. It's like with a Wheatstone bridge and a little balance there. Simple.
So we have everything we need. What about clothes?
Clothes. I got this wonderful picture card from India where there's these bunch of people that are all naked and they wear nothing but ash as the most holiest indigenous of India. And everybody loves them, and they have no clothing because they're called like sannyasin, where what they do is they give up everything and go into the world and allow the universe to offer up what it chooses. Well, and that's what Buddha would have called the middle way. The idea of least resistance. What ends up supposed to be happening is in fact what ultimately does happen. And that's what Aleister Crowley called your true will.
So what about, I guess they don't have nettles around those people, though.
They don't have what?
Nettles, if they're running around.
We have missiles, we have measles, and we have a lot of mucilage. We have everything just like you.
Well, I would rather put some clothes on when they're about. It's bad enough with those flipping mosquitoes and no-see-ums that just...
Oh, mosquito. Yeah.
You know what got me worse than anything? I can be sitting with a crowd of people like I was at South Carolina, and I just get attacked by all these no-see-ums, and they just eat me alive, and nobody else.
That can easily fix. That's your B levels in your blood. If you build up vitamin B and niacin and so on, they are not interested in you. They go to someone that's more anemic.
Vitamin B and what?
Yeah, just your B vitamins, your B complex. Keep it in your diet. That means you're a little low. You should be eating more greens.
I eat lots of greens. I eat lots of collard greens. Never mind. I'll have a look at that. Okay.
Well, that's right. You're from the South.
Well, I'm from England, where we don't get all these things. We don't get mosquitoes in England. We don't have things that bite us to pieces.
You had Vikings, and you had and you had the Moors. You've had a lot of really strange insects over there.
Nothing bit me to pieces when I was there. They left me alone. I come over here and I'm...
Well, you're on an island. I mean, there you are.
Yes, George, I love collard greens. George is in the chat room. We had lots of collard greens at Linda's. It was wonderful menus we had. We've not got long to the break, Richard, so we want to play some music. So do you want to spend a few minutes just going off wherever you want to go?
Sure, you mean take a watering hole. Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Yeah.
No. Are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, in 5 minutes...
You want me to turn the sound off now?
No. In 5 minutes, we're going to have a break. So
okay.
I'm giving you 5 minutes to talk about whatever you want to talk about before the break.
Well, I believe that it's time for everybody to start a garden. It's not about the food you're not going to grow. It's more about the fact that you're taking your first step toward independence of the universe around you. It doesn't mean you're going to be in control, but it's your first of many, many, many steps. Several years ago, I learned how to put a garden in. A couple of years after that, I learned how to harvest food from the garden. Last year, I learned how to can. And this year, I'm going to learn how to eat out of my cupboards. It's a slow process of relationship. And that's what you're doing. It's like you never really quite get there. You're never really quite sovereign, but you're aspiring toward that star. Simon says you can go halfway to the door.
And as long as you've got that in your mind, that's in the consciousness, and that's where you're being
right. You're not trying to do it all at once. You're not trying to do it all at once. One step at a time. In Contact, Carl Sagan said, "Small steps, Allie."
Mm-hmm. But as you take those small steps, and as you learn to live with the energy around you and what that energy is saying to you, it does go quite quickly. Once you're in that frame of mind.
That's the difference between the sacred and the profane. And that's what sacred time is about, like when lovemaking and when you're in a moment of timelessness. That's how Robert Ornstein thinks. Time is a duration of consciousness. It's the way you store memory.
Yes, absolutely. And if we could do that more often, we could get a lot more done, and we could move mountains, really.
You are making mountains. How about Mount St. Helens? Look what's going on today. Did you check that out?
I didn't.
I was there when the second blow went off.
Really?
I had to flee for my life just like everybody else did. It was a non-stop bumper to bumper to Seattle, and it was raining cement when the second blow and the mountain went off. It's already built up. They're saying it isn't going to go off, but I'll tell you, that's the Pacific Plate moving, and really, at some point, there will be a large. I think the disaster on Earth is most likely going to be stem from natural sources, primarily the sun. There's global warming on Mars because the heliosphere is heating up. It isn't about, man doing it to himself. Yes, that's part of it, but and there's some weird people, we talked about those earlier, that are trying to exacerbate it. That's where you have choice, and to stop that nonsense.
I actually have a slightly different theory on that. That everything that's happening is virtually man-made. Is virtually man-made these days. They are playing with nature, and they're inducing nature to do what they want to do. But the sun is actually on our side.
Well, that's true. I have a picture from the sun on a coronal mass ejection. Perfect DNA. How does that?
Yes, I know. The sun is us.
Well, there's something else going on. It isn't like, and the mother is the earth, and there's something else going on. It isn't as we think it is, astrologically, astronomically.
It's not what we think it is, but it's what we know it is. There you go. Okay, we're going to take a break now, Rick. I'm going to play some music. You can go off and do whatever you like, and come back in just a few minutes.
Join us on Just Us Radio Network for our shows Inflowment, Unity in Community, Numbers in Time, The Indigenous People's Voice, One Point of View, Walking the Talk with Kurt, and the People's Round Table. Check out our website for information about upcoming shows. Just ask Google to find Just Us Radio Network, and you will find links to our website and to our blog talk and Facebook pages, as well as to our podcast, where you can subscribe for automatic downloads.
I hope you enjoyed the music there. We're now back online for Unity in Community. That music was by a dear composer of mine from England who I called Oberon. His name is Mike Rowland, and that music was Garden of Treasures. Now I'm happy to say my sister, Jerry Jones, is here. Hey, Jerry.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Have you been enjoying yourself?
Jolly good show. Yes, I have been having a very jolly, lovely evening, actually. Thank you very much. Went for a nice dinner with my dear friend Ash, so that was very nice.
Did you have some wine or sherry?
Is that one of the trees you were hugging, or is that...
Yeah, that's my friend, too.
Well, I see you hugging this tree, and I guess an ash.
Well, you got an ash tree. Ha, 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 ha. That was clever of you.
That was a long time for the penny to drop there, Jerry.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Like, duh.
So did you have some wine or sherry?
Actually, I didn't, because I was driving, so I don't like to drink when I drive. So
okay.
I didn't.
You don't like to scare people and make them...
No, well, I scare them enough already, so...
You haven't seen her, how fast her little Mini goes. I have to send you a picture of her Mini. What do you call it, Jerry?
Zip more.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I thought I'd better be a little bit responsible. So, anyway, I had a lovely time. So, anyway, I'm glad that you are here having a lovely chat. What's been going on?
Everything.
Well, I sent you 3 links that I'd like you to feel free to post with your video.
I posted one in the chat room, the first one.
Yeah, the 3 of them. There's 3 of them. The last one is called Economic Outlooks for Herbs and Spices. And it runs down a whole list of spices in terms of what their first, second, third, and fourth year yields are and what the markets are doing, et cetera, et cetera. The other 2 is how to, before you even start to select a crop, what are some of the first basics you need to address on your farm, like you were asking. And I'm going to try to see if I can find one of those.
The first one is called Before the Farm Plan.
Before the Farm Plan. There are 10. I think it's been a long time. I'm pulling it up right now. Before the Farm Plan. Now, there are 10 different topics that points to think about before developing your farm plan. Your farm plan will be basically which crops you're going to grow, how much they're going, spreadsheets for how much it's going to cost, how much it's going to cost to maintain them each year, blah, 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 who's going to buy them, blah, 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 how you're going to take them, when you're going to harvest them. Some crops are 2 or 3 harvests in 1 year. Some crops take 3 years, or 4 years, like ginseng. Now, here's a typical thing before. New crops should be cultivated in 2-acre trial pots for at least 2 years before expanding to full production. A smaller plot size will actually not really give you an accurate production and cost data critical for success. When you're farming, it's different, and you should start with 2-acre field trials on every crop that you're going to do. If you're going to do 10 crops, that's 20 acres. And some people have expanded up to 200 acres, but not in a single crop, but maybe 7 or 9 or 12 crops. You could, for example, orchestrate your crops in a manner to use it where you can add value. Now, that's another article I haven't given you, and I can give you that, on how you add value to crops before it leads to farm gate. The idea is, if, rather than thinking about crops as raw material to sell, you would be better to see yourself as gainfully employed, and you'd like to do 8 hours a day, not 4, and you'd like to get $40 an hour, not 10. Now, how do you do that? Well, that's where farming's Yankee ingenuity came in, with economy of scale. However, the kinds of crops I'm going to recommend have niche markets. That means each year there's only so much that's sold, and there's no surplus or leftovers. That's what we call storable commodities. And what you're trying to do is get away from that concept, literally. And you grow crops that, let's say you're near a big city. Okay, now, what you're trying to do is identify why you want to grow a certain crop. Let's say you lived up in Vancouver, BC, maybe within 40 miles of the city, and it had a huge deli market. You could grow wildflowers or an herbal coffee substitute. That means you could put in 4 crops would be dandelion, chicory, rhubarb stevia, licorice mint to add a little flavor to it with sweetener, and then you imported in a Madagascar vanilla bean. Imagine how that would cup as an alternative coffee substitute for a big city with all its religious services around coffee. I don't know how it is out where you are, but in the town of Grants Pass, we have 15,000 people in town, and we have 42 coffee dispensers.
Wow.
Well, it's our religious experience out here. Remember, well, they all do herbal coffee. You could be mixing and make postum with grains. And so the coffee selections, the crop selections often might be dictated by a big Jewish community who wants a bunch of basil as frozen pesto. So instead of selling basil, what you do is you make pesto on farm and put it in the delis. And now you're gainfully employed 8 hours rather than 4.
Wonderful. Is this information in any of your books, or is it
all
of
my books. The Encyclopedia of Alternative Agriculture is 5 volumes, and you've only seen volume 1. The other 2 will come out this year, and there's 2 more for the year following. It's a big encyclopedia of 10 years of newsletters, cross-referenced and indexed on marketing and how to grow things. And so we were pioneering it back then. I was doing it like I was doing military earlier. And so while everybody likes me to talk about when I trained Navy SEALs, which is what I'm writing about, when I left the military, I went into agriculture, and for 30, I was one of Chuck Walter's pallbearers. I'm a stone in agriculture. I'm big. And so Kucinich called me the postman because of my depth of knowledge in farming. Basically how that worked, when I left the military, I announced to the world I'm going to become a dirt farmer. And Henry Barth, the 5th richest man in the world, flew all the way over from Nuremberg, came to Lathrop Top Farms here in Grants Pass, Oregon. Guy Curry was the manager, hired me on the spot, and for the next 6 years gave me 28 farms, 300 acres each, deep pockets in 4 states. And that's where I learned how to farm. And so Conrad Richter would say I'm probably the best field man in the world. If you want to put a crop in, I'm your huckleberry.
You probably learned a lot more during that time than you've learned in the whole of your life, being with nature, and you spent some time up in the mountains as well, didn't you?
Well, wildcrafting and making a living in the woods, taking advantage of native plants and natural resources.
Yes.
And a natural resource is your mind. It's not the crop. Yeah, that's what a natural resource is.
Absolutely.
Well, there it is. Read it and weep. And how is it that children can grow better plants than master gardeners? How does that work?
Because they listen to their heart.
Well, and they have a relationship that has nothing to do with labor.
Exactly. That's where their heart is. With the
that's their joy.
Yeah.
Finding joy. Okay, now that's a good keyword. Let's focus on that, please. Seeking what turns your wagon. Certain people like color. You'd be surprised. They want to see green, or they want to see crimson clover. You know, growing crimson clover over red clover, I made an herbal chew out of that. So, you know, a tobacco substitute.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So what about the color then? We shouldn't look at the colors we think with our head. We
should
really look at the colors.
How do you feel about the color? That's
yes.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why people like alfalfa. It's just so green, you know, and it's flip, 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 and you've got your rainbirds going, and you got this big lush field just ready to pop.
Do you know, when I was at Linda's as well, we bought some herbs, and there was this one, I can't for the life of me remember what it was now, but it had these beautiful yellow flowers on it, and I so loved them. I picked them and put them
mustard.
in my... No, it wasn't mustard, but I put them in my sarnie, and it was absolutely brilliant. If Linda is still in the chat room, she could tell me what it's called. It was amazing flavor. It was really cool. I loved it. I kept saying, grow some more, I could eat them.
You know, the native plants like tansy, the yellow flowers, they're everywhere. And things that are generally considered toxins. A weed is defined as a plant out of place. And every single forest department in the United States, that means we got 50 of them, have noxious weed books. And each state is different, and basically it means the cattle won't eat it. Now, what's wrong with that concept? In Washington State, there is a large infestation in Omak of baby's breath. You know how much baby's breath is worth?
What is it? I don't know what that is.
Baby's breath, Gypophilia paniculata,
right.
used in everybody's wedding.
Right.
Okay, everybody that gets married is going to have some baby's breath. Okay, so where does it come from? Well, this infestation up in Omak, there's about 400 or 500 acres of it. Figure maybe $8,000 an acre is what the crop's worth, and there's about 400 acres infestation. And you have to get a special noxious weed permit, I did, to go in and harvest the thing so you don't spread the seed and cause it to spread and make more money for the community.
Oh, wow.
Kidding. Well, I'm using that as a metaphor. St. John's wort is another one that's like that. I remember, if you can't do it this way, that's what we learned. We were doing a 2,000-acre field of St. John's wort with a 30-foot header bar. You know, knocking it down like, wait, that would make a bale of St. John's wort worth about $3, and you could sell it on the open market for about $1,000.
Of course, that's used in so many things.
We were using 30-foot header bars.
Wow.
Imagine that greed going on there. Now, I'm kidding.
No, so, yeah, well, carry on, but I was just going to ask you, because you were talking about how when you see weeds, that really depends on the
soil, for example.
Yeah, the soil and the health of the plants that are around there. How does that come into it?
If you've had a piece of ground where you've had a lot of animal traffic, not deer, but cattle, they will clay pan your soil, and mostly what you'll have is thistle. You can't grow anything because there's no topsoil anymore. It's all dead. And so all you get is thistle. Now, you could do blessed thistle as a crop alternative, and there is a shortage of that, and it goes for $9 a pound right now for the seed. You can collect that with little hand things when you walk out into the field with little buckets that you capture it with. Of course, the way we do it is with a combine, but, you know, where you have a bunch of acres of it, and if you have a certified organic tag, you can make it for another $2 a pound.
So you're saying that if you have a weed growing, which means the soil or the plant's unhealthy, you can really plant something else to counteract.
That's correct. And, like sages, there's the kind that are used to make sausage is a Dalmatian white sage, which is a Heracleotium. And it's a Dalmatian white sage, which means it has the little sage leaf, and then it has two little trilobes, one on either side, like a little, looks like a deer, like a lamb or something. That's how you do it. Someone just sent me something here. No, not you. Okay, so with that said, I guess what I'm trying to tell you now is that the weed that's growing there often is where your market is. For example, we had down on Klamath, we have big infestations of nettle. And everybody doesn't like the nettle because it's like poison oak, poison ivy. It's got formic acid on it. It'll mess you up. And yet, if you go in and take the nettle before the formic acid, when the stem is still in the herbaceous stage, probably before it even starts to form a flower, you can get 2 cuttings on it and sell it as an herb rather than a nettle leaf. And Revlon takes 400 barrels of that as an oil every year just into Florida for their Clairol hair rinse division. All comes from Florida. It's all steam distilled. You could be knocking down green chop nettle and cooking it down as oil for the hair rinse.
What about nettle tea?
What's that?
What about nettle? Yeah.
When you not boil, but steam the leaf, you disarm it. It is no longer toxic.
Right.
Yeah.
Linda's just posted in the chat room that plant it's a Mexican tarragon. That's the flowers I was eating. They were delicious.
A Mexican tarragon.
Yes. It was absolutely wonderful. I could eat that as a salad.
So whenever you find nettle, you will find intercropping with it catnip. And so now you can get into pet toys.
Right.
Yeah, no, you can.
No, yes.
Yeah.
I'm saying right, yes.
Mom and pop thing, where instead of harvesting the catnip leaf, if you take the catnip before it goes into flower production at all, when the stem is still no bark on it, but in the herbaceous stage, you can sell it as an herb. And the primary user of that is Hart's Mountain, of course, and that is a mafia company, just like the
Tell me one that isn't.
Huh?
Tell me one that isn't.
Oh, well, TEPCO. Yeah, really. They're the worst.
So what about things that grow crazy on some land, like clover? What can we do with clover?
Which clover is that? See, I mean, clover is a whole range of different possibilities. Are you talking about a true clover, or are you talking about a clover hay?
Real clover that just grows when you
like red clover. Red
yes,
clover. Red clover
with the white flowers.
It has what?
White flowers.
It's a white clover.
Yes.
That is good geritol. The white, even though it's white, it still has iron in it. That's another thing you can always do with culpepper. Doctrines of signature. Before we had chemistry, we would look at the plant in terms of its color. Oh, it's red. That's got to be for the blood. And we then eventually realized the red was from iron. Yes, it's for the blood. So that was called doctrine of signatures and the evolution. And so often when you're not sure what a plant's for, look at it.
So what is the white clover for then? What can we do with that?
Well, I know a lot of horses that like to eat it that isn't too hot on their stomach. It's a horse hay, horse feed, probably. That's what I would do. Not cattle. They need something hotter, to really put up the protein in milk and shit like that. What you want is, that'd be more a white clover is used. You can mix it with a triticale or something, have an intermix, and have a really good pasture if you wanted. I would take the clover out personally. It's easy to take out and put something more valuable in,
Right. Okay.
Well, there's all kinds of field crops. Just sweet potatoes for sweet potato fries now instead of potatoes. Markets change. And what you do is keep your radar on that part of it and what's going on. Supposing you had a huge Jewish community, where are they going to get their pesto?
Right.
Well, and salsas for the Mexican, or the blah, blah, blah for the, we have a lot of ethnic target markets now. And so horseradish is wasabi.
Yes.
And so horseradish grows real easy. That's a good field crop. And you can mix it in mayos and other kinds of things for different levels of spread in terms of how it's used. And someone doing that locally will find that will barter out just as easy as anything. So the idea is you have a final product. You don't try to move a raw material. You have a final product, and you might orchestrate a number of your crops toward a product.
Okay. Do you have anything to say to Rick while we're on the subject?
Well, very little, but I know you asked him about clover, and he said, what do you mean red clover? And then you said the one with the white flowers, so he said white clover. So is red clover the one with the kind of purpley flowers?
No, the purpley one is crimson clover.
Crimson
and the
clover.
Nice part about crimson clover is that it grows at a uniform height. It means you can go in with a sidebar cutter and take them all at once.
So what's red clover?
On how to harvest it, and crimson clover. If you've got a white clover or red clover, take them out and put a crimson in.
And what's a red clover look like?
What's that?
What does a red clover look like?
Red clover is more of a shrub that has the flower everywhere.
Oh, okay. That's something different altogether. Yes, I think Sheila was talking about the clover that we see in the grass growing a lot of places. Like the horses like eating it, and has all the white flowers and the purple flowers. I see both in horse pastures.
Clover has, like a red clover will be a red ball, predicated on where you're growing it, somewhere from a little tiny 3/4 of an inch to an inch, inch and a quarter. Crimson clover can have a big spike that's maybe 3 inches long. And all those are pistils, that hollow pistils in the flower head. And so we used the crimson clover to fill it with glycerin because it made a good herbal chew.
Wow.
Tobacco substitute. Didn't gums down, I'm going blind. I'm still single and, grumpy.
Listen, I've never been happy in my life since I've been single. I've been single for years and loving every minute of it.
I have been married half my life, and I've been single half my life. And I much prefer the company of a woman because it's sharing, not owning. That's for me. And those are the two paths to God. There's the hermit.
It doesn't mean because you're on your own you can't share. I share everything with everyone.
Well, yeah. But primary relationship going to God is called the lovers, where you have an external reflection of the most perfect man in your mind's eye. And or the hermit, on the other side, goes in where that connection is internalized rather than externalized.
That's one extreme to the other, though. There is a middle way.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I want to talk about is you mentioned how to evolve in your gardening while everything is in change, the way things are changing, and how to evolve with the crops you've got, like the way I'm going to go into it just a little bit on how we're being sprayed and different things, how the earth is changing and the way we're evolving. Have you any tips on how we can go with that rather than just listening to the earth?
Well, the weeds that are growing there right now will often tell you what crops, like your clover. Instead of growing the white one, you encourage a more crimson form. Tree lines. You might have a tree line and this part doesn't get full sun. That would be a different kind of product that maybe needs just a partial shade. There are all kinds of things. Each crop is different. And what you're trying to do is interface the relationship of the one to the other. And I always started with those 10 points first.
Right.
And that's where I started. Basic questions of what your purpose is and what you're trying to do. Some people want to go into large-scale farming, and other people want to simply be sustainable. Most farms in the country, as I used to sharecropping is where you don't own the farm machinery, but someone locally in the neighborhood does certain things for you, and you have a little relationship where you pay them $60 an acre, to combine it or whatever.
You talked before about mixing new technology with old.
Yes.
In what way?
Well, okay. Instead of romance with electrical current, and everything in our life, including our communications and everything, is with electric, why not grow, comfrey, and have a big Jack Daniel's still out there and make alcohol for my farm and my 280Z? Oh, I do. That's what I'm doing this year. I have restored my 280Z. I have dedicated half my farm, my garden in the back, to grow comfrey for running my Z around here locally. It won't have the zip that high-octane fuel required in it, but it's cleaner, and I don't have that zip anymore either, so I'm good.
And what about using the natural things we have on the land as well, like the water power and the wind power, in just a small way?
When I was up in Nova Scotia, for example, at the end of the island up there, I watched the tides move 60 feet. And we have buoys now that we have developed off the coast of Oregon that if they had been running up there in Nova Scotia, could power the entire power requirements for the East Coast.
What's a buoy?
The tide.
What's a buoy?
A buoy is a little it's a converter that, as it goes up and then goes down with the waves, generates power.
Right.
It's in motion, going up and down with gravity. And the tide is the energy that causes the buoy to go up and down. It's a transducer that makes that into electrical energy. And you have a whole bunch of buoys out there going up and down in the tide, and every day. And when you have it up in Nova Scotia at 60 feet, that would have been enough for the entire East Coast instead of all those nuclear power plants they have in South Carolina.
There must be something you can do for just a stream, like a small water mill or something like that.
Well, ramjets, that's what we do out here in the West. If you have running water 1 foot ahead, that means 1 square foot of water falling 1 foot is enough to power a single home.
Really?
Yeah. And batteries, you'd have to have batteries, so that when, you store it up and then you really sit in and you store it up just like you do with an automobile with an alternator and all of that. Yep. Mm-hmm. Just run it just like you do a car, where you run it off batteries. Batteries are easily made.
Made?
Yeah, you can make them. Mm-hmm.
Just
like you can make a solar panel. You grow the crystal like you would a crop in a water bath, and then you have a little microscope and you cleave them up and you make your replacements right there. And it turns out to do it that way for 5 homes is cheaper than to go out and buy 5 homes worth of solar panels. In other words, if you have a community of 5 or more people, it's cheaper to have that infrastructure where you're actually growing the crystals and make your own crystals in-house. And, I'm sure they'll want someone down the street will want one for his solar-powered hat that has a fan for how hot it is.
So how do you grow crystals?
What's that?
How do you grow crystals?
Oh, come on. You didn't do that as a kid?
No.
Where you have a solution and you grow the little water.
I think I was standing in the corridor in the chemistry class.
Hey, I know that song.
I was always a little rebel.
I bloomed one of mine out with a still that we made that went critical on me by accident.
So tell me, what should we do?
What do you mean, what should you do?
How should we grow crystals?
It's really solutions working with temperatures and currents that you move the currents like an ion bath, and you throw salts into the water, and when you put electrodes on it, it causes the ore to move in certain ways, and you grow crystals just in water, fluids, and they grow just like they do. Simple to grow crystals.
So how do you go
Simple to grow
from that?
mushrooms. Simple to grow lots of things.
How do you go from that to a battery?
What's that?
How do you go from that to a battery?
With a copper wire? I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. With a copper wire?
You said you can make batteries.
Yeah, make batteries. Yeah, you know what a battery is. It's
yes, I know what a battery is.
It's a covenant. It's a bunch of acid inside with two different metals in between them, and they form an ion bath where the negatives move this way and the positive move that way, and all of a sudden you have a current.
Right.
Simple. And you want to go into Brown's gas and cold fusion, where you can have some of these chemical reactions seemingly be magic on a normal temperature range rather than having to have a plasma or something. Yeah, that's easy. Yeah, but simple to do that. I think it's important to learn how to set up a forge and blacksmith. I think it's in making your own metal.
Mm-hmm.
That does not happen on each farm. That's like every 40 farms. Someone is the forge guy. And it's an art form. And that's like the Aborigines do it, where everybody seeks their own natural velocity, where they belong in the scheme of things. And so in small communities, they sometimes are deficient and need a nurse practitioner or something like that as a metaphor, to have a whole system. There are tools in the way systems work. That's why we start with family and move to tribes, and then we have small rural communities and neighborhoods.
What are you doing with the blacksmith?
With the what?
Blacksmith.
I don't understand. What do you mean?
Didn't you mention a blacksmith? Am I hearing things?
Oh, yeah. Oh, but, what do I do with a blacksmith? We have a forge shop here. Make swords. They do. They actually hammer swords out in the hour of Mercury so I can get a magic sword. I'm not allowed to use it with the Society of Creative Anachronism, but let me tell you, this cross-hilt broadsword that I have out of chrome steel is absolutely out of Conan.
I knew you were King Arthur.
I love to play comics. Yeah.
But you can.
And that's a Scottish thing anyway, so there.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I lived in Scotland for a long time, you know that.
Yeah.
But you can make knives and anything with that. You can make your own utensils.
Yeah, and tools. When I was down in Mexico, I saw they used a lot of jasper, the Aztec. Well, I was impressed with the way they built those buildings down there at Chalupa, and the massive underworks. We had 100,000 people working 100 years to create this society that was there, and I had the sense there was something even under that was older. I think man's been here on Earth for a long time, and I think that there are technologies that we've had and lost. And so when you ask me, are there aliens? Well, how could there not be? But I'm guessing a lot of it is man-made.
I didn't ask you that question, actually. That's a no-mer to me. There definitely are aliens.
Yes, there are. How could there not be? That's the way Carl Sagan put it.
There's lots. How do you get on with your blacksmith?
Pretty well.
So you could try and get some things made there, could you?
Sure.
You don't want to go back into the Bronze Age. Well, the technologies are not that hard to make a forge, with air and billows and so on. And to have separation of different kinds of metals so you can make steel.
There you go, Jerry.
The blacksmith uses steel for the shoes for the horses. And of course these days they have gas to fire the fire, so they don't have billows anymore.
Yeah, natural gas.
The back of their truck.
But, I've got friends that know how to blow candles out on big cakes, and so I just bring them in. And a little concert with barbershop quartet, and we'll just sing a little bit.
I'd love to hear you sing, Richard.
No. I know better than to do that. I have wonderful pitch in hearing, but no, I'm going to step aside on that. Thank you for that intriguing.
I can't sing either. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, I have a good voice. I've used tone and things like that. That's NLP, pig lipping, being able to punctuate, knowing how the information goes into consciousness with keywords where you hear certain things. That's why being so positive is so important, because self-esteem starts there, and that's what the farming part was really all about. What I'm truly about is the relationship you have with yourself in that environment. That's where it becomes, I don't know how to explain it, where you're sovereign.
Yes, that's it. It's all about being positive all the time, Rick, and it's all about knowing who you are.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Understanding who you are outside of your physical body.
Right. And that's the part of paying attention. And, of course, we have different senses that are basically filters. They're not receivers. And so realize that when you use a certain thing, you're limiting the experience of it.
That's if you use your brain, really, though, to translate it. If you don't go through your brain, if you just keep it in your heart, it's different, because your brain tries to make things up that it doesn't understand. It tries to connect dots.
Well, that's right. And
comes out with the wrong answer.
Yeah. That's where Plato got into basic form and the concept of what a chair was, as opposed to visual imaging in your mind's eye.
Yes.
And so those places are related to altered states of consciousness. Mm-hmm. The Plato chair would be most considered in alpha state, where you're no longer looking at anything as images, but as colors and patterns. That is an alpha state of consciousness, and could be related to going from one to the other. In the so-called alpha state, you can reprogram, for example, your parasympathetic nervous system, your response to histamine release and allergens.
And that's what we do, exactly. That's what we do.
Right.
When we know who we are, and it doesn't take long to go to an alpha state. You can do it by the flick of a thumb when you get used to it. And you can use that energy to do anything you like.
Well, it's when you're in that state that you're closer to what we call dream time. It's called the neurologic shunt. It's dream time, active, what they call lucid dreaming, that kind of stuff. That place is what Hopi Aborigines felt was more real than the conscious state that is normally associated with their physical plane. And that if you could bring that dream time closer to consciousness, that's what a child does, then they're more like a magician, where they actually, by their thought, are more efficient in creating the thought form. They do it.
It actually flows over into our conscious self all the time, even when you're daydreaming.
Daydreaming is an alpha state. That's associated with going into a high alpha. You're just sliding from beta into alpha, probably at around 11th cycle or something in the occipital region. There are other aspects that are now monitored, the direction of the alpha shift, things of that nature, as we get into what we call P300 waves and the way the brain actually moves information from one set of neurons to another. In my chapter 8 of the Power Tools, I talk about the CNV, the contingent negative variation, which is basically, I would say, the will. That is the jump potential between two neurons on either go or no go. And the CNV, if it's below a certain level, the signal doesn't go, and if it's up above a certain level, it does. And ATP, adenosine triphosphate, is the elixir vitae. That is where cold fusion occurs in the body. And you can eat that as a food to increase your juice or vitality, but it's going to take training of the mind, moving it from alpha states and so on into these various places so that you use your physical body as a tool rather than a limitation. That's what I'm about in training, is to be able to stay focused in that regard. The dream time part, there are drugs that'll do that. You know, Dr. Stanley Krippner, my mentor, wrote a book called Dream Telepathy with Montague Ullman out of the Maimonides Dream Labs in New York. And that was about the time that the movie Dreamscape came out, where we were trying to enter someone's dream and manipulate it for memory or to inhibit smoking. That's where hypnosis and of those forms, related forms, came in.
Dreamscape was a good movie.
Well, yeah, Randy Quaid. Well, was it Dennis Quaid? Yeah.
It was interesting.
Yes. The idea of attacking someone in their mind through their dreams is interesting. That was where it first started. I moved the second generation, my generation, with synthetic telepathy and the early mind wars. Today, they're attacking us in our food. And when I say that, it's no longer about GMOs. It is the weaponization of epigenetics. They are activating specific genes in wheat to go after a specific bacteria in your gut that's not human. It came from a cat. If a cat hums up in your face, you're infected. I would say 75% of America is affected with it. And that's not about gluten, gliadin, or gliadomorphin. That is about this epigenetic going after T. gondii, which Science News calls little mind benders. I've written a paper on that.
But Richard, there's a big antidote for that, and that's the mind. And as we use our mind all the time, we're evolving. And as we're evolving, those things can't touch us.
Well, I do it by food choices.
Yes, but also...
I mean, like, if you could eat all that sugar you wanted, that would not, and then decide it wasn't going to affect you, that wouldn't work.
No, but we do both.
Yes, that's correct. You are whom you feed.
Yes.
And there is now that's the most important word I'm going to use tonight, cooperation in the genes that allow you to integrate Homo sapien with Homo erectus and Homo neanderthal and this alien gene. And what you have to do is learn how to go internal to recognize what your purpose is here. Once you've got that locked in, what happens next is that you discover there's a war going on where you're in conflict with yourself. And that's what needs to be resolved first. As that gets resolved, so the world changes.
That's absolutely right, and that's where a lot of us are coming to terms with that fact now, that as we're understanding what we're here for, or some of the reason we're here for, we do get, I call it the ego attacking what we really want to do.
Well, ego is an emotion or a tool that's for survival. It is what separates you from me. And at the archetypal level, only 4 levels up, where you and I become one as a collective unconscious or numinous, is where ego is not lost, but is put in proper context with the rest of us.
Exactly. It's like training a child to train your
right.
ego.
And on the physical level, there is fear, and then as you overcome fear, What's Castaneda's second enemy? Oh, yes, power.
Yes, don't let the power go to your head. That's another thing.
Once you become mature and wise and see things more clearly, that becomes itself its own enemy. That is the third enemy of men. You remember what the fourth enemy was? Old age.
That's not an enemy.
That was it. Carlos Castaneda. The teachings of Don Juan. Trust me. The four enemies of men.
No, that's not. No. There were some really old men in
the idea is that once you understand that clarity is not real, then you're too old to do anything about it.
But then you sit back and observe. That's a very important part.
Well, yes, witnessing. That's the word.
Yes. That's a very important part of growth.
It's necessary in order to. That's one of the power tools that I developed for SEALs, was how to witness so that you could change a belief like you would a pair of clothing. If you can't witness it, and how it's not working for you, there's no way you can change it. And that's what most marriages are all about, is the conflict is their belief systems have changed. They're not doing bad things and evil things. They're different. And as such, what basically is happening is their beliefs are different. And that's why most marriages break up. Friendships are really the highest form of love there is. And that's what you're seeking, is friendship. Once you have that, a primary relationship is arbitrary, whether you do it as lovers or androgynous.
That's where I was going back to. It's great to be single. I have great friends. I have great friends, and we have great love between us. And also, it's going back to what I was saying before, how everyone comes together. When we were there working on the land with Linda and Lynn and Richard and Shannon, we all became one, and we became locked in this love energy.
Well,
and the world around us changed.
That's the matriarchal Bene Gesserit.
It's magic.
Yes.
Without a K.
Well.
I don't like magic with a K.
I see. Well, I'll let you do that. I knew Isaac Bonwitz.
But you see, these days, Richard, I forgot what I was going to say now. I was going to say something real. That's when I'm going to say something really important when I say Richard. Now it's gone out of my head totally.
Well, we talked about that earlier.
It's not about age. It's about too many things on your mind, and you're not really thinking with your heart. I've gone from my heart to my head now, and I've lost it.
How did the poem go? Oh yes, have some more of my dear. Yeah, there you go. It's called distractions.
That's correct. Yes, it distracts you from your path, and that can come in a very big way. Yes.
Well, it's important. What you do is you work in the moment, and then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Say, and then fret on it, and your mind doesn't worry it like a wart. We have some spunk water for that, by the way. And
these words, Richard, they're not used in England.
Spunk water?
Yes.
They swallowed these words?
Jerry's rolling on the floor laughing again now.
Yeah,
okay.
Huckleberry Finn. I mean, that's the classic. Spunk water, swallow these words. and we talked about it. They don't seek revenge. What they do, the English, they don't seek revenge. They introduce you to a woman.
Yeah, you said that a while ago.
I love that quote. That's
so do you feel how revenged do you feel that you're introducing Jerry?
No, I'm a sweet old man. Albeit I'm going blind, but that's okay. I'm getting work done, so.
You're getting lots of work done. Can you go through, like we've only got a few minutes left. You're so busy all the time. I know you're still writing, trying to get things out there. You're on the radio almost every day now.
Yeah.
What else are you up to?
Yeah, I'm doing just, on different subjects like you. Really, nobody has actually started yet with magic. And that's what I am. Before I'm a physicist or a farmer, I am a magician. And it's a way of being. It's a type of discipline. It is basically physics with a mystery school. It's advanced physics. It's tomorrow's physics. Yeah. And so we call it metaphysics, beyond. It's a worldview that is beyond the physical. And then I look for application in the physical world. And if I have a belief system that encompasses the physical laws, I am closer to myself.
The thing is, though, Rick, many people are born with this ability. That's why I say to you that I don't go into magic and things, because it's there already. And I see the children of today, especially my grandchildren, they are born with so much magic without a K. They're just born with it. It's natural to them, and that's how they get in contact with themselves and everything around them.
Yeah, it's the Common Core educational system that's ruining everything. Because, in fact, our natural resource is the diversity of our children.
Yeah.
And if they're autistic, I've met Temple Grandin. There was nothing wrong with her. I've seen autistic children be able to do better bedding plants than master gardeners. How does that work? Why would I call them handicapped when, in fact, they're better at what they're doing than an adult?
Yes.
So what's happening is that we're being distracted. And what is important is our children. What is important is the diversity of our children. That gives us a bigger gamut and spread. And really, these little kids are watching us and how we deal with it. And that's where they learn how to do it themselves, like pedophilia or whatever, gambling, drinking, whatever. They learned that from their parents. And while there are swings where I'll never do what my father did, and we swing back and forth from one generation to another, in fact, teach your children well. That's the bottom line. The kids do not have, because of the breakup of the family here in America, they do not have the role model that even some of the poorest countries like Mexico do.
That depends on the people, though, Rick. As I said to you, I'm one of 8 children that came from a one-parent family, obviously, because my father left when I was 10. From the age of my children when 9 and 5, I brought them up myself, and they are totally the same as me. It depends, how you are with them, what you teach them, and how you let them be themselves, how you let them grow. It's nothing to do with how many people are in your family. It's all to do with the individual.
Maybe. Well, that's okay. It was nice talking with you, Sheila and Jerry. And she's hiding down there.
I know. She keeps disappearing.
I'm here listening.
I want to have what she's having. What was that? I want to have what she's having.
Yeah, I know. That's cool.
You got that joke. Good, cool. That's it's always fun with you.
So what would you like to say, Jerry? You haven't been able to say much as you came in halfway through.
Yes, I was very late already, but I'd like to say it's very wonderful listening to Rick, because he's just a mine of information, and we can ask him any question and he's got an answer. So, yeah, I think we should all go out and get his books.
There you go. It makes me go from a starving artist to a struggling artist with minor debts.
And you're publishing.
I am looking and I am seeking a patron, because I have 10 manuscripts are all ready to go. They're done.
Wow.
They're ready.
There you go.
And your website again, your publisher's website is
book-publishing.com, yeah.
All right.
And your website is?
richardallenmiller.com. ALAN Miller. richardallenmiller.com.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Rick. I really do appreciate you coming on here with all your knowledge. Thank you, Jerry, for rushing here so that you can speak with us. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and everyone in the chat room. We really do appreciate you listening. And we're now going out with Chase Spinney.
Lovely.
See you guys later, guys.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Rick. Bye.
Bye.
there's enough love for everyone. One light, one sun, there's enough love for everyone. One light, one sun, there's enough love for everyone. One light, one sun, there's enough love for everyone.
One friend gave me spec for the song I sing. I said even when I talk charts it's nothing. It's time that we all find our passion. What hits you make the heart beat faster. We fly like we kites in the wind stream. Earth spins, bring me joy, love and good dreams. Get far, get you higher than you ever been. Hit top, then you're falling back down again. Hey Pop, thank you for catching me. You know, we make a good family. Hey Ma, thank you for having me. Without you, I don't know where I would be. Hey sis, we grew real quick, what's this? It's me hoping that every day you follow your bliss. No dream too big, can't aim too far. Even if you miss, end up in the stars. To all my mamas and the pops in the history, thank you, cause what you did paved the way for me. To the ones yet to come, the new kids, under one sun, one sun.
One light, one sun, there's enough love for everyone. One light, one sun, there's enough love for everyone. One light, one sun, there's enough love for everyone. One light, one sun, there's enough love for everyone. I fall in love almost every day now. I see the beauty in a new way now. See me smile happy and you wanna know how. I don't have the words, it's just wow. Like the colors return to their faces. Black and white television leave me no trace. I'm a rainbow now, I'm all kind of races. Celebrate life on a daily basis. Wake up in the sun shining on my bed. Feel the love rise from my feet to my head. In the middle of my chest, I hear my heart beating. I'm alive and I know there's a reason. Even you, plain Jane, got the keys in. Every one of you and me get a taste freedom. So much love for it to go around. Day after day, see the sun come out. One light, one sun, there's enough love for everyone. One light, one sun, there's enough love for everyone. One light, one sun, there's enough love for everyone. One light, one sun, there's enough love for everyone. One light, one sun, you and me together make one love, one love. One light, one sun, you and me together make one love, one love. One light, one sun, you and me together make one love, one love. One light, one sun, you and me together make one love, one love. One light, one sun, there's enough love for everyone. One light, one sun, there's enough love for everyone. One light, one sun, there's enough love for everyone. One light, one sun, there's enough love for everyone.